host Jack Posobiec.
Christ is King.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Today we have a very special edition of Human Events Daily for you. We're here live in Washington, D.C. Today is October 30th, 2025. It is Mischief Night, as we used to call it in Philly. And look, we are here at General Flynn's New Media Summit. Today is all about independent media. It's all about disrupting the narrative. It's about getting the truth out. And we're so glad that Real America's Voice, Human Events Daily are able to be here and to be a part of this great summit, because we're meeting with people from all across the spectrum and, in fact, all across the world. Even some folks who are joining us from Ukraine that are here, that have been on the front lines. They're going to tell us the truth and give us ground truth, including video, people who go to the front lines, people that go into even occupied areas to tell us what's actually going on behind those lines in ways that the mainstream media just will not do. This is the force multiplier. This is how you can be a truth aggregator, how you can actually get the facts, spread it out through using social media, using independent networks like Real America's Voice over the top, and then going and telling that story. So we're going to be here holding this summit, this meeting of the minds. James O'Keefe is here. Laura Logan is here. Ava Vlar is here. We've got an incredible lineup for you. So we're going to be having we're going to be showing that on Real America's Voice all throughout the day, but then also we are going to be doing a sit-down right now with General Flynn himself, my former director when I was a DIA intelligence analyst, a very young E5 petty officer, IS-2 Posobiec, when I went on my deployment to Guantanamo Bay, and he was three-star general director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, because this is what it's all about, the interplay between information and truth and policy. We've seen over the last 10 years the lies from the mainstream media, the lies from the intelligence community, and we're fighting them every single day. Yesterday, the revelations that came out about the FBI's Operation Arctic Frost, the targeting of TPUSA, the targeting even of MyPillow and their banks and Mike Lindell. This is the situation that we've been through. We were living through a version of the American Stasi. General Flynn came out, blew the whistle on it, and he paid a price for that. And he suffered for that, and he was attacked for that, and he was raked over the coals for that. But we're so glad that he's here to sit down with us today at Human Events Daily to be able to understand this, to sit down. Really excited to be here with General Flynn for yet another summit in Washington, D.C. General, thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely, Jack.
And thanks for sitting down. So tell us about what is the purpose and the goal of today's summit?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, I had a great conversation with a group of some of these podcasters who were just emerging, on the scene of what we have seen. And I'd call it the podcast presidency, because guys like you and others that have giant followings, and you're leading a message of essentially we've got to save America, right? I mean, I think the big picture, Jack, is everybody sees the threat that we are facing here internally to our country. And one of the big topics that we're going to talk about today is censorship. And how do we work together? So this is a means been going on for a couple of years. I now have an opportunity with the Gold Institute to organize this effort. We have over 200 essentially people that operate in the world of social media and podcasting, alternative media, independent media. We have over north of 75 million viewers for today's audience. And when you start talking about impressions, we have tens of billions of impressions from some of the types of people that are going to be in here. This is just a sort of an open forum, an initial stage to start organizing the independent media forces that we have. As a military guy, I'm just trying to say, okay, to move forward as a nation, how do we task organize? And frankly, one of the things that you'll hear me talk about today, Jack, is that President Trump is really in this, he's really taken on the institutions of government, certainly in the United States, not just overseas, but the institutions of government. And he's, kind of slashing them, to metaphorically say he's slashing and burning these institutions of government. And I think the rise of what we now know as fake news, right? People can define that however they want, but there's clearly, there is a lot of untruth, misinformation, a lot of things out there. And what you have in this room behind me is a bunch of courageous entrepreneurs who have said, look, you know, we want a voice, and we're going to have a voice. And one thing that I'll get off my dime here, there are people in here that have audiences of 75,000, and there's people in here with audiences of 5 million. The people that have 75,000, those are deeply loyal audiences because they stuck with that person. Some of it's regionally, but we certainly have you know, global representation in here with people from Europe primarily and Eastern Europe as well. We have a Ukrainian woman. I won't mention her name now because I'd screw it up, but I'll introduce her here in a bit. She's got an audience of 3 or 4 million from Ukraine, and she's got an interesting view of the world. So part of this is not just to talk about the current situation, it's to talk about how do we organize better, because thank God that we have Elon Musk, and he opened up X, you know, bought Twitter and turned it into X, and we have this great platform, which is great. But if that changes, and you just don't know, where else do you go? What are the battlefields of the future that we are going to have to operate on? And you know, and as you know, you helped me, you know, promote it. You know, Boone Cutler, you know, God rest his soul, he and I wrote the book on 5th generation warfare. And that's kind of where we're at. That's where we're at. We're going to talk a little bit about that today.
Well, I think we should. And even before we get into that, I was going to say, though, just picking up what you were saying, that we've seen so much how in this town, and obviously you in your past position as the director of the DIA, you've seen how the flow of information, and by the way, not just classified information, but the flow of public open source information.
Thinking about travel? Think AMAC. AMAC members have access to special money-saving discounts on hotels, car rentals, cruises, and more, so you can save money on every adventure. But that's not all AMAC has to offer. AMAC is America's leading conservative advocacy and benefits organization, guided by the principles of faith, family, and freedom. So when it comes to saving money on travel and so much more, think AMAC.
Are you Julie? Hi, are you T?
Yes, I am.
Come on in. Hi. Doing all right today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Since Veterans Day is coming up, we are recording messages to disabled veterans. If you would like to do one, just look into the camera right here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It takes a lot of courage and bravery to fight for us.
You give your life, you give your time, you have to leave your families.
We need you, we depend on you, and you are great.
They just give a lot.
Thank you for your service.
We're going to pick up a friend of mine right here.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Wow, it is so nice to meet you, man.
I'm Julie.
Julie, I'm Shane. It's nice to meet you.
I never served, but I am so grateful for those who have. Getting emotional.
You chose to serve, and you don't have to. So I thank you.
That's my honor to serve, to have people like you guys tell us thank you. This is the motivation that we need to keep going.
You can say thank you to our disabled veterans too when you call the number on your screen or go to helpdav.org to give your monthly support of only $19. When you do, we'll send you your very own DAV t-shirt as a symbol of the care you're making possible for veterans and their families now and in the years to come.
Can I have a hug?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Your monthly support to DAV is a great way to say thank you to disabled veterans like me.
Please call or go online to helpdav.org to say thank you today. Your monthly gift makes all the difference in the lives of our disabled veterans, now and into their future.
Nothing will stand in our way, and our golden age has just begun.
This is Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
Now it's time for everyone to understand what America First truly means.
Welcome to the Second American Revolution.
Did you know that in the last 6 weeks, 86 million AT&T users had their name, address, and social security numbers leaked? Or that the CCP is harvesting massive amounts of Americans' personal data to train DeepSeek and other AI systems? When you're online doing the work like I am, you need digital camouflage. And that's why I've partnered with our newest show sponsor, Patriot Protect. Patriot Protect removes your personal data from the internet. Whether it's Google, Amazon, or Apple, your personal data will be wiped so that scammers and cyber criminals and swatters, like the ones that came after the Poso family, will not and cannot find your data. And you can take back your security and privacy. Once Patriot Protect scans and scrubs your personal information, they'll continuously monitor your info to make sure every new instance of a possible data breach is eliminated immediately. I'm talking 24/7 protection for the cost of keeping the porch lights on. The only thing worse than getting hacked is knowing you could have stopped it and didn't take action when you could have. So go to patriot-protect.com/POSO and use promo code POSO for 15% off a yearly subscription. That's patriot-protect.com/POSO and use promo code POSO for 15% off a yearly subscription. patriot-protect.com/POSO. Whether it's, so if you're getting your news, you're getting your worldview, your mindset from CNN, from MSNBC, from the Washington Post, I've always seen this dichotomy where people will get that mindset and then they bring it into the skiff, right? So that everything that they're looking at is colored already by what they just watched on TV. So the question is, how do you drive good policy if you're starting from a bad mindset? And that's where I think independent media and the independent drivers of these narratives, you mentioned Ukraine, the battlefield right there. Who's winning, right? It kind of depends on who you're listening to. What's really going on the ground? It depends on who you're following. You're following this guy, you're following that guy. And as usual, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But I think that's one of the key differences in what we've seen driving President Trump's rise and really the rise of alternative media is that it's not just having a difference of opinion. We're having a difference of fact at this point.
Right, exactly. And I think the word that I would capture with everything you just said is discernment. So discernment has to do with, and I'll just use my definition of what I believe it is. Discernment has to do with looking at an issue, looking at information, taking a deep breath, stepping back, and not just emotionally rolling with whatever the initial judgment is, okay? Because I just used the word judgment, which is different than discernment. So discernment, and I'll talk about this here with this crowd, let's not let emotions drive us. It has driven me at times. And let's take a step back, look at the information that's being presented, make some judgments about the information and about the facts, do some research. Because if you want to continue in this world where people really do believe you because you're an honest guy and you come across very honestly, then you have to drive for the truth, right? Because the one thing about the truth, and I learned this as a young officer, there's three sides of the truth. There's your side, there's my side, and then there's the truth. So what we want to try to do is drive ourselves closer to what the actual truth is. And do you ever find it? I don't know, but you can get really close to it. Especially, another word that you just use is facts, right? And it's like, well, if I see a red car, it's a red car, right? But you go, nope, it's blue, and it's moving. And it's like, no, it's a red car and it's parked. And it's actually a red car and it's parked. I'm not sure I can convince that person that says it's a blue car and it's moving. I just don't know if I can convince them. So I don't want to waste a lot of time with that person. And if there's people that are listening to them, they're injured. I think that they're intellectually injured by that kind of discernment, if that makes sense. And to me, that's part of what we have here. And we have people here that are on both sides of not necessarily the political aisle, we'll see, but we definitely have people on different issues that are on different sides for some of these international issues. We're not here today to talk about the current events of the day. We're here to talk about understanding the future of alternative media, because as we've seen, and we're going to show a couple of charts here, we've seen the decline of corporate media, the decline of advertising for sure, and the rise of advertising and the rise of alternative media, because people know, well, that's where people are going, right? And we see, Barack Obama recently, I think in the last couple of days, he's been out there, and I think a month or so ago he was out in Stanford, if I'm not mistaken, where he's talking about we have to relook how the information domain operates. It's like, what is that? What are you talking about here? So we do have people from Congress, a couple of people from Congress later in the afternoon. They're going to come in and talk about legislation here in the United States of America to basically protect us against censorship. And we also have somebody who's going to talk about some of the European Union type legislation that is occurring there too, because there's censorship going on all over the world, and we've got to fight that. We've got to fight that, right? I mean, I have my views on what I like to see or what I believe should be on a social media platform. I mean, I have a nonprofit that fights child trafficking, as an example, right? So I don't, anybody that gets involved in that. So this is where people are going to have to judge what is actually displayed on social media, on the alternative media. And, and that's part of the discussion. I don't know what the final result will be here today, other than that we will learn some lessons. We'll bring those lessons together, and I'll mention it here on your show. We are, everybody here, and to include yourself, will get a save the date for an alternative media gala where I want to recognize the excellence that we have in alternative media. I want to recognize some of the new networks. I want to recognize some of the courageous podcasters out there, some of the courageous people that are from social media that are telling the truth. And when you check them, when AI checks them, or Grok or Chat GPT or whatever checks them, or people who actually know about the issue check them, they're honest about it. They're very honest about it. And I think that honesty from a political angle is what Donald J. Trump, that's why he's the president, because he was so brutally honest with the audience that said, yeah, that's what we want. And I'm a big fan of Trump. I don't agree on everything that he does, but he is, the most, I mean, probably one of the greatest leaders that we've had in terms of our time, the times that we are facing, and thank God we have him, because otherwise the alternative, speaking of alternative media, we wouldn't have alternative media. We would have something that is so egregious had we gone the other direction. And
found his own social media and his own Truth Social and been banned, and I think that speaks to the power of these networks as it is, because if they can ban a sitting president of the United States, then who's actually in charge? Because if they decide the president can't have access to speak anywhere, it'd be unheard of to say the president's speech can't be broadcast on national TV in the 60s, 70s, 80s, but suddenly he can't be on social media. It's totally unheard of. And then they cut him off. That's right.
Some of these corporate networks, they cut off the president of the United States, and when he's in the middle of a bilateral conversation with a country that matters, right? I mean, and all of them do, but certainly a top 5 or a top 10 economy. Right.
All the rest of it. Well, one of the pieces I wanted to get into is that we've been fighting over human events, and it's small, but it's big in the sense, this case out in Utah with the murder of Charlie Kirk, our friend. Right. The lawyers for the defendant, they just filed, and it gets to the censorship question, because they just filed a motion that cameras should be banned from the courtroom, that they don't want that to be shown. And I think this is a huge problem, and it gets to this problem of censorship and this affinity for censorship, that we seem to, an appetite for it that we didn't used to have as a country. The whole point of putting something out publicly, especially in a trial, right, is that the public can be, in an open society, the public should be a check on the process. Yeah. So you've got a piece of evidence, the prosecutor's got evidence, the defense has an argument, they're fighting it back and forth, and of course the jury decides guilty, not guilty. The judge, hopefully calls balls and strikes. But the public has the ability to come in and be a check on the entire process, because maybe they could elect a new judge if they don't like the judge. They could do something and fight it out in federal court, et cetera. So when I look at that case specifically, and you're talking about these networks, and there are, and you mentioned fifth-generation warfare. I look at the assassination of Charlie Kirk as an example of fifth-generation warfare in action. And I went on CNN, I think just a day or two after it happened, and they asked me, they said, are we in a civil war? And I said, we are seeing asymmetric civil warfare. Yeah. And that's the definition of fifth-generation warfare.
I mean, first of all, Charlie Kirk was a monumental, historic figure, bar none. I mean, he just... and it's interesting, because I was in a conversation last night, and then before I wrapped up the night here, I went through all of my text messages that I have with Charlie over the last couple of years, just to kind of, as a reminder of his personal touch that he had, not just on me, but he had a personal touch on humanity. So it's a tragedy what happened. I don't know the legal issues of Utah, But I think that the American people, particularly for this assassination of Charlie Kirk, I think the American people deserve to see justice in action. In a very transparent way. It's supposed to be blind, or not blind, right? I mean, so we don't want to, or justice is blind.
Yeah, justice is blind, yeah.
What we want is sort of an open. We're not interacting. It's the prosecution, the defense, the judge. It's still that system. So people begin to gain a sense of trust again, because the American people do not trust the justice system. They don't, and
good reason.
For very, believe me. So they don't trust it. I mean, look at what, as Trump came back into office, look at how the judiciary just has slow rolled him to the 10th degree, and he's still going through that. Never mind, this trial that's going to go on with, to determine what actually did occur, to get to that truth, right? Your truth, my truth, and then what is the truth? And that's what we want. And on that note, I still believe that there are a lot of questions that are out there. And I think that those questions that are out there, they need to be resolved. And maybe if this is where the Department of Justice is going to have to come in really strong to fight to say, no, Judge, we want this trial open.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Most investors believe their IRA, 401k, and bank accounts are reliable and safe. But what if our economy becomes so dire that you're restricted from accessing your own money? The fact is that should your bank be in trouble for holding bad loans, the burden could fall on you to help bail them out. Even more concerning is that U.S. financial regulations allow banks to impose withdrawal limits on your hard-earned savings. But there's something you can do about it. Our team at Swiss America has a report called The Secret War on Cash. Learn how to protect yourself with assets that can remain outside the control of banks and other financial institutions. For over 40 years, Swiss America has been one of the most trusted metal firms in the country. So don't wait. Call or text the number on your screen today for financial peace of mind in these uncertain times.
Are you worried the IRS might come after you? It's not just a money issue, it's a life issue. Back taxes can wreck finances, destroy credit, and leave you stuck in constant stress. Dr. Phil here, and I've got news for you. Millions of Americans are behind on taxes, and many settle for far less than they owe. If you owe more than $10,000 or have unfiled returns, Protection Tax can help. Stop fighting alone. Their tax experts and licensed professionals deal with the IRS so you don't have to. They can settle personal or business-backed taxes no matter how serious your issue is. They've saved their clients millions. If you're overwhelmed, don't wait. Now is the time to take action. Call Protection Tax for a free confidential consultation. Take the first step and take your life back.
Hi, Julie. It's Pam. Listen, I just saw the storm warning and they're saying it could be bad. I know the store is going to be a madhouse, but we need to stock up on food. We also need gas for our generator, or we're going to be stuck without power. Please make sure you have everything you need before it's too late. I don't want you getting caught unprepared.
For Patriots, everything you need for total peace of mind.
Hey, you talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, he's done a great job.
I believe, if I read right, and people can check me on this, that Utah courts are allowed to have cameras inside.
So they have a rule in Utah that's actually very permissive for cameras, and I don't know the exact citation. It's like 4104 Utah rule, and it says there is a presumption that courtroom trials will be televised, or what they say reported on using electronic devices. So they have the presumption of openness and transparency written into the law, which is actually very open compared to some of the other states. I think it's great.
I mean, unless it has to be sealed because something's classified or whatever, and I'm okay with that. But even then,
I mean, you can think of potential reasons.
There's permutations of it, but for this particular one, because it's Charlie Kirk, and he was such a historic figure in world history. You know, as I look back at different types of people, which is something that I do study, Charlie's unique. He's very unique, and he was unique, you know, for this country going forward. And so it's a tragedy that our country lost a great leader. And now I think that we should be fighting, our government, our justice system, Justice Department should be fighting tooth and nail to keep this trial public, very public. And let's let everybody see what's being presented.
The judge is yet to rule, so we'll see what happens. But we wrote over at Human Events, and Libby Emmons, our editor, had this great line that I just have to keep repeating. She said, you know, Charlie didn't have a say in whether or not his murder would be public.
Right.
That was on live stream. And we do have a say, though, over the trial, so it should be public, too.
Yeah, I agree.
And we know in this day and age, even the fact that he did the murder on live stream, right, that it occurred, that's a form of asymmetric warfare as well, because they know, of course, when you see Charlie Kirk on campus, the clips are everywhere and everybody's watching when he goes and does these debates. So to do it on live video that way, not when he's getting in or out of a car or something, it's meant as a form of an asymmetric attack, isn't it, on everyone who's watching?
Absolutely. It's intentional. It's very intentional, and to try to strike fear. I mean, that's what an act of terror is. An act of terrorism by definition, it is meant to strike fear in the hearts and minds of whatever it is that's been attacked, you know, a society, a religion, whatever. And that's the whole purpose of it. So it's to strike fear. And frankly, what I have seen since Charlie's murder, is I've seen young people standing strong. And that's encouraging to me, who is a guy who, you know, kind of, you know, getting long in the tooth, but still fighting for this country, by seeing these young people who are sort of the future Charlie Kirks in different places. It's like the apostles, right? They get anointed and then they go around the world to preach the gospel, right? So that to me is very, very encouraging, and that's a legacy, and that's something that we want to encourage. That's why I think that it's another reason why this trial needs to be very transparent.
They're telling me the time, but if I have just time for one more question. This dust up that we've seen between, you know, and it's sort of going after these left-wing networks, they're talking about a dust up, FBI, NCTC, people arguing over who's got authority to go after these networks, et cetera. What would you say to come in, from your perspective, having been in the IC, having been a leader there? Is there a way to get over these turf battles? Is there a way to set up a JTF or something? Because at the end of the day, it's about disrupting the networks and keeping people safe, not about who gets credit.
Yeah, in fact, if you're worried about who gets credit, then you're in the wrong business. You know, credit will come when others give it to you, right? So, first of all, this latest dust up, the way I understood it was that there was a meeting in the White House in the Situation Room, and it was leaked. It was leaked. So there's a crime right there. So somebody said what happened in that meeting to the media. So everybody that was in that meeting should be given a one-time poly. So that's what I would do. So if I was the Vice President of the United States or the President, I would say, get everybody back in there, and I'll give you the question. Give them a one-time poly to see who leaked that information to. I think it was to the Washington Post, right? I think that was the first, or the Times. It was one of the first ones that I had seen. Number one. So that's okay. Get that off the table. But I do think that clearly the FBI has jurisdiction, so it's a jurisdictional issue. But there's too many questions out there that still remain. So instead of having an infighting and who's going to get credit for what, I think the bigger question is, what do we believe? So I look at myself as an American citizen. What do the American citizens believe right now that are here? And these people represent, 75 million of them, right? So what do they believe? They believe that there's more to it. So I think from the perspective of the administration and the perspective of certainly the Department of Justice, it ought to just be, look, we're looking at everything. We are looking at every single angle, not just of the trajectory of the bullet, but we're looking at every angle of this investigation. We are going to dig, because Charlie Kirk deserves it, okay? His legacy deserves it. The American people deserve it. The people that Charlie Kirk was leading, as a huge movement, they deserve it. So if something comes, if new evidence becomes available, we're not going to close this thing. We're not going to shut our eyes and say, open and shut case, it's a done deal. I think if they said that to the American people, I think that the American people go, okay, that we're going to trial. We'll see what happens. We're gonna.
One of the constructs that I've been pitching is, let's get a joint interagency task force and have it not just on this, but on all left-wing net violence, all networks.
They probably have something like that.
I hope so.
Cash and Dan are too smart to not do something like that. The intel community, the people that are doing this, my guess is they probably have that. The challenge is that you're gonna get different things. I mean, we cannot deny the things that we have seen, right? So videos and such, you can't deny this. Back to the truth and discernment. So I think all that I get it all the time, is just let us know that there's an open investigation. We're looking at everything. And I think if that was the answer, I think everybody they wouldn't shut up and go home, but they would at least temper down and say, okay, the FBI's got this, and I believe that they do. But I do believe that there's other things that must be looked at. There has to be looked at, because we have already learned this with the assassinations of many people going back to the 60s, right? And we've learned this with other school shootings. When we look at the cell phone of an individual and we see that person did something, they're in touch with everything. There's no doubt, factual now, that there are other connections to these shooters that are out there.
General Flynn, your staff has given me the look. You've been incredibly generous with your time. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me today.
Thinking about